Hello and welcome to Piwik PRO YouTube video series. Topic of the video: Piwik PRO CDP profile enrichment with data from HubSpot. I should probably add here, while we talk about HubSpot, the concept of today's video could be applied to many CRMs out there, or many platforms out there for that matter, and HubSpot just going to be an example of CRM platform. So what we're going to learn? First, we're going to discuss the rationale for CDP data enrichment. After all, CRM is full of data, so why would you want to extract data elsewhere to CDP? So we're going to discuss that. Then we're going to go through the step-by-step process for enriching CDP's profiles with data from HubSpot. Okay, so let's start with a bit of a one-way discussion. A lot of the platforms out there are made in a way that it is easier to extract data from them rather than import data to them and reach data in an automated way. That is not the case with Piwik PRO CDP. In Piwik PRO CDP, it is fairly easy to import data, i.e. enrich profiles in an ongoing way, sync data, and that is done via webhooks. And as a result, have a complete user profile. So while your CRM might be having a lot of data on your prospects and clients, it might be good for certain tasks, CDP could fulfill the need for all the tasks that a CRM lacks or is too expensive to perform. This is especially true when it comes to combining various types of data from different systems and, above all, detailed website behavior data that with Piwik PRO CDP comes out of the box. So, using Piwik PRO CDP, you could combine your CRM platform data with website behavior frequency and recency so that you could create activations or workflows based on the fact that your hot lead visited or clicked on a specific type of content, say 3 times, indicating level of interest in a specific product or services, and they did that in the last 3 days or say last 30 minutes, indicating that the interest is still relevant, active, and not diminished. They might be still interested in that thing that they were looking for on your website. And this is important because the data that we keep for analysis, its value grows the more data we have because it reduces sampling error due to the law of large numbers. But for activation purposes, unfortunately, data has an expiry date. If the prospect wants to purchase something today or in, say, 2 days, they may not be interested in a purchase week or month from now. Thanks to CDP, you can act on your data while it is still relevant. Okay, enough with the discussion. Let's get to the step-by-step setup part. I'm already in customer data platform, and what we need to do, we need to go to the data import, but I'm already here. So what I need to do, I need to click on import data, and in here, let's give it a name, profile enrichment with data from HubSpot. That's my name of the import. And the important part is that we have here a webhook URL that we're going to need in just a moment. But second step, so we're going to come back there. But second step, we need to go to HubSpot. And in HubSpot, we need to go to workflows. Now, bear in mind, I have admin access, and this is a sandbox environment. And workflows, you need to have enough permissions to have access to workflows. So if you don't have enough permissions, you may not be able to see what I see. But under automations, you need to click on workflows to arrive in workflows. Now, the second step will start by creating a workflow. So let's click on that and let's hit from scratch. And now there's probably many ways in which we could go about the data export or profile enrichment in CDP by selecting all these different options. But probably the most appropriate one would be to start with a contact-based workflow. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to create blank workflow. So I'm not going to use any other option. And then here in this view, we need to set up a trigger. So what's going to initiate the workflow in HubSpot? So let's click on that. And in here under enrollment, again, in here, we can set up different situations in which workflow could begin. You could do it for when the event occurs, when filter criteria is met, that's the one we're going to use, or based on a schedule, or when a webhook is received. That's a sort of premium feature that I don't have access to. So as you can see, there are certain limitations, but I do have access to when a filter criteria is met. So I'm going to click on that. And in here on the right hand side, I'm going to add criteria of my filter. I'm under filtering on contact current object. So there's many ways in which you could do that, but I'm going to use that one. And I want to send the data to CDP based on certain contact properties. So I'm going to hit on contact properties, but again, you could use some different options. That's up to your use case based on what you want to do, what happens in the HubSpot. I'm going to use contact properties, and in here, I'm going to use a standard HubSpot property called lifecycle stage. So that's the one. And basically, now those values can be changed, but out of the box, they are normally set up for subscriber, a lead, marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead, opportunity, customer, evangelist, other. So whenever that value is being basically known, that's going to trigger my workflow. So if this property called lifecycle stage will have any of these values, that's going to trigger my workflow. And this is when the data is going to be sent. So that's quite, let's say, open trigger. You might want to have something more specific, like when specific property changes, but you would need to set it up in here using all those conditions. I don't want to spend more time on that because that's for you to figure out based on your use case. So in this case, I'm just going to close the editor. I'm going to save it. And then the second step within HubSpot will be to click on this plus button and decide what will be the action that we're going to do. And there are, again, many different workflows that you could create in HubSpot, but what we want to do, we want to send data to CDP. So we need to click on data ops. And because we're using webhook method, we're going to click on send a webhook. And in here, we're going to select post. And this is the place where we need to go back to our CDP and copy the webhook URL and paste it here. So now I've pasted it, and out of the box, you could include all contact properties to be sent to CDP, but I'm going to choose the properties that I'm interested in. So first one and the primary one will be email. Why is it primary? Because we're going to use email to match profiles in HubSpot with profiles in CDP. So in here, when I click on that, I can find in the search email property. So I'm going to click on that. So that's email. And in here, I can add a static property or I can click on property. So I'm going to add another property. This time I'm going to use lifecycle stage. And in here, I'm going to find lifecycle stage. So that's the two properties now that I'm going to send. Let's add one more property. Let's say content interest. Now, this is just an example. Content interest, it's a custom property. This is not any particular use case. In here, I can add a static value. And by static value, I could add the value that will be sent with each and every data export to CDP. So I could add something like HubSpot data is true, meaning whenever we would send that data to CDP, we could potentially find in CDP all the profiles which were enriched by data from HubSpot as a, let's say, supportive property with static key and value of the data that is sent to CDP. But that's it. That's all I want to send. And let's say now I want to test my action. So I want to test it. And now I can click on synchronize data. So the data was sent. I can see the test value, test value, test value. And what I want to do, I want to hit on email. In here, in this part, I need to choose email so that email from HubSpot can be matched with user ID. User ID stores the email in case of this particular website property in CDP. But in some cases, instead of email, we could potentially use some other identifier like some sort of customer ID, customer nickname, and so on. But email is probably the most popular way of matching the two different profiles from two different systems. And I'm going to select lifecycle stage, content interest. So I already have those attributes. If you, let's say, HubSpot data, I don't have that kind of attribute, so I'm going to create one. So that's a Boolean value because it's basically true. So that's why it's Boolean. And now I can save it. Now I have this test data that was sent. I could potentially check it, but we'll come back here. And now in a workflow, I can review and publish my workflow. That's a quite important step now, because in here, the HubSpot is calculating how many profile would meet the criteria of my trigger. So in a moment, we will see the number 9,362. Now in here, I can choose yes, enroll existing contacts who meet the enrollment criteria, meaning met the trigger conditions, or select no. I'm going to select no. And then in here, I can click on next, next, and next, and then turn on the, here I need to click on save. And now I'm ready to turn on the workflow. Let's go back to workflows. I didn't name my workflow, so I could potentially rename it, but let's leave it as it is. It's on. And now let's go to contacts and let's create a contact that meets the criteria of this very workflow, and then to check it whether the data was sent to CDP. So in here, I'm going to create a contact. So we can see that lifecycle stage is set to lead by default. So we will meet that criteria, and I'm going to send the content interest is, let's say, blue widget, whatever. That's just the example. And let's hit create. So now HubSpot had created the contact in the HubSpot CRM. Now let's go back to the CDP and check whether the data was imported into the CDP. So let's click on refresh data. And we can see that we have two successful data imports. One was a test and another was one that we've just sent. So I can click on that and I can check the data that was sent. So we can see email, we can see the custom attributes, lifecycle stage, lead, content interest, blue widget, household data, yes. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to our channel. Check the description below to find some useful links like free Piwik PRO sign up page, community forum page, and links to related videos. Until next time.